So far, it wasn't the best of situations. But this leader of this city of refugees was making the most of it. But they had to do better in order to ensure long-term survival. On the previous day, research on the beacon had started. Something that would be essential for finding other groups of survivors. Yes. They were still out there, although there was no indication of when they would appear. Although they would appear. Well, not all of them at this point were accounted for. And they had at least a couple of weeks of supplies. Although one priority at this point was more coal. As without it, not that much would function. Well, the people would freeze to death. Steel was useful, although long-term. A more reliable supply was needed. And at this point the beacon was researched. As for what to research next, faster means of gathering supplies was considered a priority, as that would mean more coal being gathered. A temporary solution, but there was enough wood and steel to construct a beacon near the supplies. The supplies to the north, to be more precise. Which is why it was worth diverting any that could be spared to constructing it. That way, there would be at least some indication to how close the groups of refugees are, or rather were, in this case. Although the food situation would also need to be remedied. And once the beacon was built, it was revealed that there are two groups of refugees arriving. One before night fell, and the other more than a day behind. As for sending a scout party, that would require more wood. Certainly more wood than was there at present. And in preparation for the new arrivals, a tent was under construction. Yes, another group arrived around that time, so its construction could not have happened well, it was good timing. Let's just say that. I believe you can see the pacing of what is happening here. The pacing being a steady increase in the amount of those within the city, which meant an increase in the workforce, but as a consequence an increase in the amount of food needed. The amount of food needed. Even with the amount gathering coal, it was still not enough. Of course, I could say that he was trying to make, well, don't know. I don't know who the gender, what the gender is. Yes. Speaking was not that much of a strong point for me. Well, whatever the gender of this leader, they were clearly ill-prepared for this. but under the circumstances they're doing quite well. I've just found this document, and it turns out the leader of this city is a woman. Well, this frigid environment cares not for who freezes in it, so why should we care about that small detail? As long as whoever is in charge delivers. Food, as well as coal, were in short supply. Well, so was everything else, but those were the more important supplies, weren't they? Something would need to be done about that. This leader of the City of Refugees grew desperate and signed for a law on soup, considering how bad the supply situation was. it was a necessity, although it was discontenting. It would not solve the problem of food, but it would mitigate it, at least long enough for the supply situation to improve. Now, there are a few that say that a woman could not do my kind of job, but let's just say that Gin introduced them to pain in the form of a swift blow to the nether regions. Which makes me thankful that I lack that attitude. And not just because she's proven through action that she could do it, much as the leader of the city of refugees could do it. And with faster gathering, it was a good time for better equipment for the hunters, because that would mean more food. At this point, some considerable construction work was implemented. A gathering post near the coal piles to the west, along with houses, or rather tents. Although, when it came to a call for double rations for the children, she rightly said that they couldn't afford it. Well, it was the unfortunate truth, as there was barely enough for everyone else. Yes, tents, a gathering post, and a necessary steam hub to make it livable. An additional heat zone would mean more buildings could be safely constructed. Although there was one building that was needed more than most. As there was a high demand for medical personnel, which meant that when it could be afforded, a medical post would need to be constructed. Another one, to be more precise. Also, another workshop would be a good thing to have, because it would increase the speed of research. Previously, it was something that could be ill-afforded. Oh yes, and at this point, another hunter's hut was considered for construction. fact, yes, it would be constructed because the food supply would need to be increased. And not just because of the additional workers that would be arriving. Before the next day dawned, a near-constant wave of them. Almost overwhelming, is it not? It certainly would be for me. Well, that steam hub was not in the best position as additional steel was just outside it. Although, thankfully, the equipment was ready. Well, almost ready by this point.
Time to rest, folks. Work's out for today.
And when it was ready, not long before the hunters set out to bring some food in, the next research project was the coal thumper, as coal was in desperate need by this point. Although this leader of that city, she had some doubts about that. I'll go into that later, as it's not particularly relevant at this point. That's a little later. Yes, I know I was a bit redundant. And also, it might seem a little inconsiderate to have accommodation constructed after they arrive, but it was short notice and well, supplies at this point were limited. And by this point, it was clear that adult workers did better than children. In fact, only they could be trusted to, well, with soup. The food supply situation would be solved for at least the immediate problem. Although infrastructure would need to be built up. Because not taking into account population growth would lead to disaster. And then at this point, missing children were alerted. Well, the plight of the missing children was drawn to this leader's attention. And so the next priority would be establishing a scout party to retrieve these children. That would require quite a bit of wood to make possible. Now, what law would be signed at this point, you may ask? Well, considering the amount of discontent, a fighting arena,
Hear me.
well,
New law in the city.
it was a good idea to stop the people from getting bored. That was certainly something that would help greatly with the discontent problem. As for hope, that was something that needed to be dealt with in a quite different way. As for the next wave of refugees, that was being dealt with in advance. At least partially. The Trail Bend would be the first place that the scouts would be sent. But first, a scout party would need to be made. The piles of wood and coal were not going to last. An alternative means of gathering both would need to be developed if that city was to survive. Thankfully, that was in the process of being remedied.